In 2020, Sucker Punch released the marvel that is Ghost of Tsushima, a game that didn't necessarily break the mold of its respective genre, but showed that with that mold you can create some beautiful art. And the reach of that art was not only limited to a plethora of stunning landscapes filled with vibrant colors and breathtaking views, it extended to a memorable cast of characters, a strong, fulfilling narrative, a flashy and satisfying combat system, and an ever-engrossing open world. All combined together to create an experience that helped Ghost of Tsushima stand out amongst the pack, elevating it to a status so high that many fans hailed it as the game of the year. And after 5 long years, we can finally answer the question, can it be done again with Ghost of Yotei? Can it recapture the magic of Tsushima with a more expanded combat system, new weapons, more enemy variety, more side content variety, and a different style narrative? Can it push beyond being just a fresh coat of paint on an otherwise fantastic game and go as far as to surpass it? Today, we will discuss it. In a world full of meaningless arguments and comparisons that do nothing but put a wall of divisiveness between us, I'm here to add yet another brick to the wall. 2 games at the mercy of opinions. Can we follow the wind and cut through enough bamboo to reveal to us the authority on which is better? Could it be me? Sure ain't, but for now let's pretend. Remember, there are no winners here, except for the game I pick at the end. The classic Ghost of Tsushima versus the big and bold Ghost of Yotei. The Ghost versus the Onryo. Dishonor versus Revenge. Flute versus Shamisen. The historic clan Sakai Katana versus the devastating Odachi. Can Ghost of Tsushima prove that lightning can't strike the sword twice? Or will Ghost of Yotei show that the peak of the mountain belongs to the lone wolf? Back in 2020, I will shamefully admit that I saw Ghost of Tsushima as just a play-by-the-numbers open-world game. While I thought it was executed well, it didn't have that spark for me that it did with other players. I didn't understand its overwhelmingly positive reception, deeming it for most to be the game of the year. I will also shamefully admit that I didn't even finish it. And I can't tell you why. I can only assume that I got a little lost in side content, stripped myself away from the narrative, and didn't give it the full and undivided attention it so rightfully deserved. I wasn't following and embracing the wind, so to speak. Rather, I was seeing Ghost of Tsushima as just another leaf flying through it. But 5 years can do a lot for a player's gaming maturity, and there's nothing like a fresh and complete playthrough to erase any preconceived notions and doubts. I thoroughly enjoyed it this time around. While there were definitely some spots I felt could be touched up to be a little less repetitive, I appreciated the delicate balance between all the different types of side content and how all of them were useful and inviting. Everywhere you go, there's something new to do. There's a new shrine to scale, a new camp to liberate, a new side mission to explore a supporting character further. And for the most part, they're all accompanied with worthwhile rewards, either on the narrative or gameplay side, that can help you be further invested in the story or make the gameplay more diverse and exciting. Now, when it comes to Ghost of Yotei, and I'm assuming many other players were in fact just expecting that fresh coat of paint. I did not think that I would have so much to talk about with a sequel, which made the experience all the more fulfilling. Seeing how so many things have been changed, updated, or improved, and almost every time a new ripple of that change would reveal itself, I was shocked and excited. It really is cool to see how a lot of developers aren't shying away from pushing the envelope in the most emphatic way possible, making us constantly question with each new release, can games really get much better than this? Now, is Yotei a perfect example across the board that all these evolutions will always lead to better games? Are all the updates and well-executed moments enough to have it surpass the beautiful simplicity of Ghost of Tsushima? Without further ado, let's explore that. Story, gameplay, graphics, music, etc. Let's soak our bare butts in some hot springs, meditate deeply, and see if we can come to a definitive conclusion. The story. I am fresh out the hot springs for this one. Both stories on paper can be seen as tales of revenge, but Tsushima leans more on the side of uniting your people and leading by example, no matter what the cost, to overcome a great threat. While Yotei is about the creation of a great threat, the night one chose to make an example of them. They are both filled with captivating moments, twists and turns, struggles both internally and on the battlefield for our main protagonists. One focusing on becoming what some would call a dishonorable monster, but all for the greater good, and the other being a bloodthirsty monster out for their own self-interests. But in ways you could say that both of these motives are present in both of these characters throughout their journey. So let's start at the beginning. Ghost of Tsushima starts with the Battle of Komoda Beach, where a majority of the samurai of Tsushima Island are gearing up to defend their island from the Mongol invaders, led by the infamous Khotan Khan. And it ends in catastrophic failure. Almost all of the samurai are overwhelmed and annihilated, save for one man, our main character, Jin Sakai, and of course his uncle, Lord Shimura, who is captured and held prisoner by the Khan. After being injured and rendered unconscious, Jin is nursed back to health by a thief named Yuna, who will serve as the catalyst for the paradigm shift in Jin's life. Not knowing his uncle is still alive, Jin seeks to avenge him, and because he no longer has an army fighting by his side, he has to resort to tactics that are dishonorable to have a fighting chance against the Mongols. Jin comes from a legion of samurai lords, so the way of the samurai has been pushed upon him since the day he was born. Always attack head-on, and don't let your emotions control you. Fight with honor. Initially through Yuna, and by extension many moments and characters throughout the game, Jin learns that the way of the samurai isn't always the way to victory, and Jin desperately needs a victory, not only for the good of the people of Tsushima, but as a way to live up to his full potential as a man. When he was a child, he had to watch his father be murdered in front of him as he cried out for his help. Jin was frozen in fear and did nothing to try and save him, and he's haunted by that moment to this very day, which makes his eagerness to save his uncle and his people, no matter what the cost, that much more inviting. It's such an intriguing concept that in order to become an honorable man, Jin has to redefine what it means to be one in his eyes and the eyes of his people. Be someone your people and family can be proud of, while simultaneously going against all their teachings, adopting the ways of the ghost in a satisfying slow build to the point that he fully embraces his new path in the end. With Yotei, it follows relatively the same story structure, but in its own way. The game begins with our main character Atsu as a child, being pierced through her shoulder to her family's tree, surrounded by their lifeless bodies, murdered at the hands of the dominating force of her island, the Yotei Six. Led by Lord Saito, a man she brought to her doorstep after encountering him in the forest, and unbeknownst to her, had a long history with her father, a skilled swordsmith who, by deserting Saito in the past, led to a ripple effect causing more desertions, the death of Saito's clan, and even his wife and daughter. Saito enacts his revenge and leaves Atsu to burn with her family, but she survives and makes it her life's mission to avenge her family and meet them in death when all is said and done. She spends 16 years becoming a fierce warrior, slaying nameless enemies, all while picturing them as the outlaws who murdered her family, until she finally returns home, ready to enact her revenge, writes all their names down on a cloth that she will don for the rest of the game, aiming to cross them all off with their blood, and set an example that you don't mess with the lone wolf. But throughout her journey, she finds that by returning home, her nightmares and vengeful nature is now clashing with something that she might be truly fighting for. Something that was stolen from her that fateful night, her innocence and peace. And by the end, she fully embraces that path. And I have a lot to say about it. But nevertheless, the stage is set for both games. For Tsushima, overthrow the invading Mongols in the Khan despite the questionable tactics needed to do so. For Yotei, avenge your family by destroying the Yotei 6, despite a new calling questioning whether you're truly a monster. So let's discuss how well each game gets to its inevitable destination. It's funny how I have more of a bias towards lone wolf type stories, characters that may be flawed, and if they do things that are considered noble, it's usually in an indirect sense, out for their own self-interests, or doing noble things solely as a duty to themselves and not to others. But Ghost of Tsushima is such a compelling and inspiring story that it shatters that bias completely. It has a basic structure for each act, have a main obstacle to overcome that seems insurmountable, gather resources and people to fight beside you, have it end in a war, win it, and pound back some sake. But the way it does these things is nothing short of masterful. While it can seem very redundant on paper to be doing the same thing over and over again, always being one step behind the Khan and the Mongols, the way the world and supporting characters are structured alongside Jin's relationships with them are the necessary supplements needed to give you something to fight for. The game constantly showcases the effect that the Mongol invasion has had on the people of Tsushima, people being burned at the stake, burned and impaled by spears, loved ones lost, hope lost in the strongest of people. It also showcases the fear-inducing influence of the Khan, and the lengths he will go to completely conquer the island and enslave its people, using fear, intimidation, and the promise of riches to lure people into his grasp. And it's done in shocking ways, like how he manipulated Ryuzo, who was just trying to feed his people, into burning citizens alive to further his dominance. Or how about arguably the most impactful moment in the game, when the Khan murders Yuna's brother Taka, and dangles his head in front of Jin, who is powerless. Taka came off as such an innocent character. Just from the little time you spent with him, you could tell he was a warm and kind soul and was just inspired by Jin to help. And that help leading to his death almost instantly was so sad. The Khan asked Jin to join him, knowing his people would follow the ghost, and he tells Jin that he will keep bringing more of his followers in to make the choice again, and kill them as well if he chooses not to comply. It is so cold and so well done. But it's interesting how there's a little bit of a parallel between the Khan and Jin, both leading through fear, seeing Jin's influence and how it affects the people of Tsushima. They are also terrified of him, shocked by his brutality and how he's handling his enemies. But it's not as simple as picking the lesser of two evils, because Jin is also using hope. Uniting his people, samurai, settler, monk, and ronin alike, using his notoriety of the ghost to his advantage to rally all of Tsushima against the Mongols, even convincing rival samurai clans to join his cause like at the Battle of Yarikawa. It's nothing short of inspiring. Seeing Jin not just come into his own as a strong warrior and man, but as a great leader. Every time you're presented with a main mission where a great war/battle is involved, it's Tsushima at its peak. Whether it's the Battle of Yarikawa, the rescue of Lord Shimura, or reclaiming Castle Shimura, I was always amped up like I was running into battle alongside all the characters. And this is a big reason why I consider the side missions to be an absolute necessity. You wouldn't run into war without knowing the people you're fighting beside. If you played Tsushima and skipped out on the character's side content, while you're not missing out on major plot points, you're robbing yourself of the full experience, effectively dulling one of the best themes of the game. It helps that all the side characters are likable and offer life lessons to Jin, either directly or indirectly, like the cost of obsessing over revenge or how to move on from worrying about the people you failed to save. Or with Yoriko taking a moment to reconnect with Jin's childhood and father, Of course, you're not running into a Mongol war with Grandma over here, but there was an equally intense war going on between myself and my tear ducts during her final side mission. I did not expect Tsushima to break me, dude, but I have to applaud Sucker Punch. Bravo. Taking a mechanic I was getting a little tired of throughout the game and using it as a tool to create such a tear-jerking moment was just absolute masterclass. One character I am not shedding a tear over is, of course, our beloved Unk. Shimura, you miserable sack of crap. The dynamic between Jin and his uncle could be argued as the best aspect in the game. Good old uncle stuck in his samurai ways. We must not strike from the shadows, Jin. That is for cowards. We must fight with honor, not our emotions. Now let us sever our enemies' heads and put them on sticks. It is so charmingly ridiculous. But whenever Jin would challenge his uncle's ineffective ways, it was so satisfying. Not just because it's the closest thing to family he has left, because Shimura takes it a step further, wanting to adopt Jin as his son. Bro, chill out. Getting the moment after Jin kills Ryuzo for betraying him, coming face to face with his uncle and saying, "I am not your son, I am the ghost." Best cutscene in the game, roll credits. Dueling him in the end after a heartfelt moment under the family tree and him refusing to just get over his samurai nonsense and enjoy their victory. Defeating him in combat and sparing him, because that's the only choice. I don't know why we were given one, probably because it could give you the chance to finally shut up this idiot forever, but nevertheless. Not giving him a warrior's death, walking the path of the ghost. Let him sit there with his tears and failure. This may be recency bias, but it's one of the most satisfying ends to a game I've ever played. It's definitely up there. So how does Yotei compare? Yotei is like Tsushima in that it's split into 3 acts, but doesn't suffer the same repetitiveness, as each separate area is met with a different style of enemies and setting to shake things up. But does that mess with the quality of the narrative, like not having one consistent threat like Tsushima? No. It does not, for the most part. There's nothing like having a list of people to kill that wronged you and crossing them off one at a time. And it's always a fun time when each have completely different looks, personalities, and combat styles. The game be gaming. But the cool thing is their uniqueness isn't the only thing going for them. Each member of the Yotei 6, aside from Saito, aren't just gateways to him. They all played a specific role in the deaths of Atsu's family. The Oni killed her father, the Saito brothers shot her brother, the Kitsune was there when her mother was hung, Saito hung her, Saito pinned her to the tree, and the snake stared at Atsu after she was pinned to the tree. Maybe that's why he was killed off first. Not much story to go off there, but anyway. Each area explores a distinct event in Atsu's never-ending nightmare, but also reestablishes some peace and innocence for her. With the Kitsune, her love of music and connection to her mother, learning to fight through her nightmares and loosen their grip on her psyche, all taught to her by the former Kitsune herself, Oyuki. With the Oni, finding out her brother Jubei never died and reconnecting with him, them accepting each other for who they are, despite Atsu initially being standoffish. Jubei grounding her a little, stressing the importance of looking after the living and letting the dead rest. The Saito brothers section, discovering Jubei has a daughter and connecting with her, seeing a younger version of herself. Getting a taste of family, spending a day not killing hundreds of people at the temple with all 3 of the catalysts for her change. She even writes a song to honor all of them. How cute. Not to mention the nice flashbacks to her childhood Atsu has on her own throughout the course of the game. All serving as nudges for Atsu to find the strength within her to carry on without being so consumed by revenge. In concept, to some, this could be seen as a more diverse and exciting narrative, giving you a bunch of different things to play around with, filled with tons of memorable moments, surprises, exciting battles just like Tsushima through the Matsumai clan, epic boss encounters, some good character introspection, the closest people to Atsu challenging her point of view. But I have a bunch of problems with it. I think the best way I could describe Yotei is I think it does a better job at moment-to-moment execution rather than overall story appeal. It's got great characters, a good variety of them with different motives and personalities that are all interesting, and they're all for the most part used fantastically to build off of Atsu's journey in ways you wouldn't expect. As far as the overall narrative, it's for the most part structurally sound, sure. But some of the choices it makes and the timing of pivotal moments that bring the story together and reveal to you what it truly is kind of left me a little confused and unsatisfying. Or let me not sugarcoat it, a little disappointed and annoyed. For one, it not having the same build as Tsushima, with Atsu not gaining notoriety as the Onryo over the course of the playthrough, slowly. She does get increasingly more infamous, and it's cool to see her bounty go up and Saito's army adapt and find new ways to try and stop her, but she kills the snake right out of the gate and everyone on the island just instantly knows and gives her the title of Ghost. And if she's already so infamous, I need a good reason as to why the Yotei 6 aren't immediately ganging up on her. Like I said, the Saito clan is adapting throughout the course of the playthrough, but we're talking about the underlings here that you can easily avoid. Each member of the Six has armies behind them. Why are they not just taking a day off, going to her home and setting the tree on fire again to bait her out? But for the most part, all of the Yotei 6, including Saito himself, are just sitting around in their respective areas waiting for Atsu to come and kill them. While you still feel the negative influence from your antagonists, like with the Khan and the Mongols, it's just in less of a profound way in my opinion, at least for the majority of the game. Lord Saito is a great villain, in ways I find him more entertaining than the Khan, and his character can speak louder than his actions, whereas for the Khan it could sometimes be the opposite. I just didn't feel he was used to the best of his ability. Aside from the whole you don't want to see him draw his katana deal, which paid off in the end, his aura just doesn't come off as scary and unconquerable. Which brings me to another issue I have, which is the lack of struggle for Atsu. Of course, she's been suffering internally for many years through her nightmares and trauma, and the bruises and scars on her skin definitely do a great job of painting a picture for how much pain she's had to endure physically. But when it comes to hunting down the Six themselves, she really isn't facing any major setbacks. Setbacks, sure, but in the grand scheme of things, they always feel minor to me. She even acknowledges this in a line, I forgot which member it's to, I think it's the dragon, that it's been relatively easy the entire time. Now an argument to make is, well, they saved all the major setbacks for the tail end of the game because it was the right time, and you could feel the turning point for her character approaching. I still think I can refute that, or at least try when I talk about the ending. But in Tsushima, Jin's struggles in comparison were just way more impactful in my opinion. Not being able to save his uncle initially, the death of Taka, failing to protect him for Yuna, the poison he used to retake Castle Shimura being used against his people by the Mongols as like a genocidal weapon. It gave really good reasons to be unsure of his path and the effect it might have. Would the cost be worth the victory? Will more innocent lives be taken? Did his actions to win one battle ultimately lose the war for his people? Giving you obstacles to overcome and questions to ponder as you try desperately to reach the end and succeed in your goal. With Yotei, you're given a goal at the start. For me personally, a more exciting goal. You get a gut-wrenchingly emotional opening scene, an epic and aesthetically pleasing extension with Atsu writing down all the names of the Six, and then killing the snake in a hard-fought battle. Crossing the first name off with blood, feeling so badass, and it has you on the edge of your seat like, I can't wait to do this again. And then by the end, we're burning the name cloth and basically deeming our most important goal completely unnecessary, because Atsu is a good person now. When it comes to main characters in games like these, I feel like revenge is bad is a dish best served to the garbage can. And while selfishly I can say I am a little sick of basically every major PlayStation exclusive over the past 5 or so years containing this same message in some way, it goes beyond my bias. I think the message only truly works in movies, TV, etc. And if it's in games, it can only work when it's through a supporting character and your main character is the guiding presence helping them. Or rather, it could work if I wasn't playing an action-adventure game and slaughtering thousands of nameless enemies throughout the course of my playthrough. Because telling me that the most fun thing I'm doing throughout the game is wrong or unnecessary is the complete opposite of satisfying. And sometimes narratively it just makes no sense, or it at least complicates things. I was waiting the entire game for Atsu to have her fully become the Onryo moment. And when it finally came, I actually found it more satisfying than Jin's. I like her mask better, I thought the setting was incredible, I felt her anger, and the line about giving the Night of the Burning Tree a new ending was phenomenal. You're locked in a room with what feels like 100 enemies, slaughtering them all one by one while dealing with the spider, covered in their blood. But then of course, Jubei's daughter Kiku is waiting right outside the door to remind us that that was a no-no. You need to stop being so cool. I did like Atsu's line though when she said that the blood wasn't hers, like as if that would comfort her. It was hilarious. To derail the negative train here, or at least stop it to get some air and positive snacks, the writing in this game is great for the most part, although the dialogue could sometimes feel a bit too modernized. Ghost of Tsushima feels like a classic samurai tale, and Yotei sometimes feels like I'm watching a Marvel movie with the line choices and some of the comedic timing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because when the game wanted me to laugh, I was almost always laughing. Mad Goro is a show stealer. He is hilarious. And when you were fighting him, Jubei being like, "Don't get too close to him, he's got a rash." That's fun. Okay, we had our snacks, back to hating the ending. To double down on the story always having this conclusion and structurally making sense, we once again have parallels between the heroine and the villain. Saito enacting revenge leading to the creation of the ghost, and Atsu set out to enact her revenge only to realize it's the cycle of violence, guys. Revenge begets more revenge. It's all pointless, especially in video games. And I love being told this while receiving arguably the coolest masks in the game right before the final battle at the gift altar. If your message is revenge is senseless, stop making it look so badass. I'm just going on tangents at this point. Forgive me, but I haven't learned the valuable lesson that negativity begets more negativity yet. I felt that Jubei's death served no purpose, aside from forcing Atsu to adopt a new life. Fight for the living, you say, while Atsu still kills and stabs Saito into the tree. Fully commit to the bit, Jubei. Scream out, "Don't avenge me, it's bad." Both Atsu and Jubei have had 16 years to take on entirely new identities. Atsu as a vengeful vigilante, and Jubei as an honorable samurai. Jubei focusing solely on protecting people, knowing that his one shot at vengeance on the night of the burning tree ended in failure, makes complete sense, and I like that. But you're meaning to tell me that after 16 years being raised on the way of the samurai, that he hasn't been groomed to want Saito's head on a stick? The leader of the clan he's at war with, responsible for the deaths of tons of his people. Let's slice off the Oni's head together. Oh, by the way, revenge is a fool's game. Now maybe I'm misinterpreting this as he's saying to fight for Kiku in the end, but I'm just fired up, confused, and unsatisfied. Blinded by rage. I should really just see this as a better story. But I feel that the loss of Jubei would have been better served as a lead up to the final encounter with Saito. It just felt like by the time Atsu suffered her biggest loss in her journey, she had already been reformed and renounced herself as the ghost. I feel like losing Oyuki and Jubei prior to the final battle would have been a way more compelling reason to be like, oh my god, what are we doing here? But that didn't happen, so now I'm lost. And that's the gist of it here, folks. I thoroughly enjoyed Yotei's story for the most part. I could go on positive tangents right now and give Yotei its flowers, but it would just be me frantically throwing those flowers into a giant fan to do damage control. It's really good. I just didn't like the ending. I promise I enjoyed it. I'm a good, unbiased reviewer. There's tons of great cutscenes and epic moments and great acting. I love this game. I just personally feel that where we ended up when all was said and done wasn't fully earned, which for me helps it fully earn an L in the story department. I pick Ghost of Tsushima, but story isn't the only factor at play here, so let's move on to round 2 with gameplay. Now this is a category where that I didn't expect there to be so much to talk about stuff bleeds in. Tsushima stands, hold on to your socks, because Yotei expands the gameplay to infinity. Right out of the gate, I can say while playing through Tsushima, I kept fighting with myself like I could really be doing more side content right now, it's enticing. But with Yotei, I effectively lost that fight numerous times, as it has some of the most addicting side content of any game I've ever played. More duels, liberating camps is still a ton of fun, the return of mythic tales, even one for Jin himself. Now the enjoyment of course isn't just limited to the side content, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. While with Tsushima I can try and present an argument that sometimes simplicity is all you need, I would be arguing for someone else. If you can sit there and argue that fighting the same enemies over and over doesn't get a little bit repetitive, or that you still get goosebumps by the 87th time you've tracked a set of footprints like no other human has walked that path before, all the power to you. I can't say that the repetitive nature of Tsushima makes it an inherently subpar gameplay experience, but I can say that it really does teeter on the level of investment you have both in the story and the combat system. However, if you say the same about Yotei, I will gladly stare at you for a few seconds and then follow with what are you talking about. So let's start with the base combat system. In Tsushima, you have your trusty katana and 4 stances for dealing with different enemy types, all providing different movesets and seamless transitions between each of them. In Yotei, you're provided with 5 completely different movesets and weapons that again are tailored towards dealing with specific enemy types, but here I didn't find that the usefulness of each was as limited to only dealing with specific enemies, as they all provide varying benefits in things like speed, range, and stagger potential. I could use my base katana if I want my attacks quick and swift, yet slow and more deliberate. I could use dual katanas if I want to bombard my enemies with a flurry of attacks, or use the kusarigama to create distance between myself and the enemies, hit them at a distance, hit multiple at a time. And it didn't matter how many times each weapon master would reiterate to me which weapons are best suited for dealing with specific enemy types, the only one who is objectively correct is Master Yoshida, as the Odachi is the most powerful weapon known to mankind.
Roll your Odachi! Use your katana
Use the yari against Kama.
The Weapon Master side missions serve as the replacement for the character side missions in Tsushima. The building of integral supporting characters like Jubei and Oyuki is rightfully delegated to the main missions. But that didn't stop the Weapon Master missions from having intriguing stories and likable characters, like the Kusarigama Master and his grandson, or teaching Atsu lessons on how to concentrate or endure more or whatever. And they weren't as dragged out and repetitive as the side missions in Tsushima, despite them covering their own likable characters. It really was refreshing how every weapon you mastered came with training mini-games and skills that your main character didn't completely grasp from the moment they got the weapon like in most games. You aren't just presented with enemies to use as punching bags, you get cute little mini-games like throwing kunai at squash, spearing fish, or learning to cut bamboo with one hand, which literally translated to you yourself having to do it with one hand on the controller. And as if the side content wasn't addicting enough, the weapon masters are so likable that it makes liberating their respective areas all the more enticing. Like, hey, I just gave you this awesome new weapon and quality bonding time. Are you sure you want to just up and leave for main story content instead of helping me out? No, I don't. This nice system of learning abilities isn't only reserved for the side content either. The Kitsune teaches you Listen mode for stealth, which is a bit more refined this time around. Stealth operates basically the same. Like most aspects of the gameplay, there's nothing I can really say from game to game other than Yotei is just more expanded and better. Being able to use the Kusarigama to stealth kill enemies from a distance and even yank them to where you're hiding and keep them out of plain sight, it's incredibly convenient. The stealth kill animations I just find more satisfying, and I always opt out of upgrading the speed of assassinations because it just makes the animation itself less satisfying for me. As far as ranged weapons, this is where for me the bulk of their use comes in. I mainly use bows just as a way of stealth killing enemies at a distance in both games, and both the heavy and light bows function the same from game to game. But especially in Yotei, I found that I was usually too invested in hand-to-hand combat that I'd rather chase down enemies and duel them than shoot them from afar. That accompanied with one of the most satisfying inclusions here in Yotei, the ability to pick up dropped weapons and launch them at enemies for a quick kill or stagger. This made stringing together a bunch of kills in succession so epic and satisfying, as every time you do it, the camera pans to the throw and slows down time when the spear or sword hits the enemy. It is so addicting to do. And you can disarm enemies with a yellow attack that costs 3 spirit to ensure you get the chance to do it. You also get spirit attacks for each different weapon that cost 1 spirit, and now when you don't connect with a spirit attack, you don't lose your spirit. However, if you're low on spirit, you can replenish your spirit with sake that spiritually gives you spirit. Spirit. Bombs are bombier. You get flash bombs that basically function as ranged smoke bombs. You get 2 different guns. Sheathing or wiping the blood off your sword on command has even flashier animations, some that can happen at the tail end of an attack animation automatically. It's so smooth. And what is a game in the Ghost of series without the ghost stance? In Yotei, you first get the Ghost Howl to basically give you 1 free kill. And it's admittedly a little ridiculous, but who are we kidding? The Terrify mechanic in general is a little ridiculous. But it's convenient and fun, so who cares? And like I said, I found the moment Atsu got the stance to be more satisfying, and by extension, I think the stance itself is more satisfying here. dual katanas are fun. You get a wolf companion that can show up in battle to help you out or even engage in a standoff with you. I could exhaust myself, which is exactly what I'm doing right now, with how many different new updates and improvements there are across the board that aren't even all necessary, but they're welcome. And that extends heavily into the main mission variety, side content, and exploration. Where's the shrine to the gods of convenience and innovation so I can drop to my knees immediately? Thank you for this gem of a game. Where to start? You get the option to hunt down bounties and participate in duels right out of the gate. You can set up camp where you get immersive minigames to start the fire and cook your food for day-long perks. The world is more interactable. NPCs can join you at your campfire. There's gambling minigames. Guns. Is this Samurai Red Dead Redemption 2? You bet your sweet ass it is. Only while in Red Dead you needed to pump your horse up with steroids to have them perform at optimal speed, the horses in Yotei eat stacks of steroids for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You even get a charging ram attack to plow your way through enemies. What are we even doing here? Having fun. Horses can get a significant speed boost, not just by riding through white flowers, but also by picking up collectibles like bamboo or flowers. So it gives you more incentive to pick them up as you're riding around, because it's like playing a racing game where you're looking for speed boosts and shortcuts to go faster. Resources are so plentiful in Yotei. So many lootable chests and bounties give you tons of coin. Never did I find myself short of items to upgrade an outfit or weapon of my choosing like I did with Tsushima. Getting new skills to expand any and all capabilities, be it melee, stealth, or exploration, are now obtained through finding altars of reflection instead of just liberating camps and doing main or side missions. And I feel they're a lot better structured this time around, giving you more useful abilities that return from the first game like perfect dodge early. And the more altars you find, the more are revealed to you through the unmatched map system in this game. The more side content you do, the more maps become available at the cartographer, and each come with a nice little puzzle minigame where you have to find the area it connects to and stamp it on your map. Now, I'm sure there are some players out there who would rather just explore the world openly and discover new things themselves, and the good news is, you can do that if you want. Just ignore the cartographer, despite him being a bundle of charm. But for me, I find the map system to be so engrossing. It's one of my favorite aspects of the game, and it doubles in satisfaction and convenience when I can fast travel directly to the mapkeeper in whatever settlement I want. Perhaps the best addition to accessibility and convenience in this game is the ability to fast travel directly to any shop. So many times in the first game I'd fast travel to a temple or settlement and be running around blind trying to find the shop I went there for. Some of the main shop areas are huge and each shop is spread out and not always visible. So having this new ability in Yotei is just a godsend. The charm system is back, and I felt like I was getting charms at a way more consistent rate this time around, which is great because now you can get more slots by collecting more charms instead of having to do multiple fox shrines in Tsushima. They're also upgradable with challenges like staggering a set amount of enemies which you can abuse and upgrade fast. I love when games do this because it gives you more incentive to explore different weapon types and playstyles that can turn the tide of how you approach the game, or at least ensure that they're being used and not forgotten. Yotei just gives you so many tools right from the start that you do side content, snap your fingers, and already you're the ultimate badass. And this can be seen as a minor detriment to the overall game. Like I said, narratively it can make your journey less of a slow build of perseverance, and with the game itself, it can make things like ascending shrines slightly less inviting, as I feel the game gives you a boatload of charms that are incredibly useful and easily upgradable, to the point you don't really have much need to expand, at least that's what I felt. The shrines still provide a good break from the combat if you need it though. The platforming is still solid, I don't really have any complaints. Other than in Yotei, sometimes it's a little hard to read which direction the game wants you to flick the stick when climbing. It's minor, but it's prevalent, at least for me. Having the grappling hook from the start is nice, and the addition of the sliding mechanic makes platforming a little more enjoyable and diverse, as well as provide easier ways to descend cliffs and get back to exploring. As far as other break from the combat side content, bamboo strikes are back and just better with the added flying bamboo and one-handed challenges. Wolf dens are better than fox shrines because chasing down a wolf on horseback is way less tedious and annoying than running after a fox in circles just to get an inch closer to a new charm slot. Hot springs are better because female butt greater than symbol male butt. And like I said, there's even a gambling minigame that's actually pretty fun and simple to learn. The only thing I can give the edge to the first game for is its haikus over Yotei's paintings and songwriting. The haikus were just way more relaxing for me, and super personal given you choose the haiku, and it remains in the description of your new headband you get for the remainder of the game. It's nice. As far as outfits and weapon kits, I'm not one to talk about them too much, as I'm more of a base story outfit and weapon kit kind of guy, especially with games like these that are more narratively inclined. But the moment I got to the black dye merchant in both games, I was jumping up and down. As soon as you give me the option to make an outfit black and its design is aesthetically pleasing to me, I don't care what perks you attach to any other outfit. I will deal with whatever disadvantages I have to suffer with as a result. Aesthetics over utility. Having said that though, in my opinion, aesthetically, Yotei's outfits are better, the masks are better, the weapon kits are better. Moving on. Mission variety is something that's extremely welcome here. A lot of the aforementioned side content like minigames and whatnot are sprinkled throughout the main story. You get infiltration stuff where you're disguised to get closer to your main targets or gather information, eavesdropping. There's even puzzle solving this time around. The Kitsune section is the best in the game in terms of that variety. There are fort raids where you're solving puzzles to enter them, fighting stealth enemies with their own stealth, solving more puzzles, and then you're greeted with a puzzle box at the end. It's just non-stop good content. Like I said in the story section, the uniqueness of each area and its enemies does a lot to wipe you clean of all the repetitiveness you could suffer from playing Tsushima. Enemies have different abilities, different weapons and movesets, can switch weapons on the fly, they don't scream "da-ja" every 5 seconds. They can string together more combos, sometimes requiring more than one parry if you don't get a perfect one. And all this is extended into the boss fights as well. All are fantastic, both narratively and gameplay-wise, no notes. One notable thing I have to include though is that in the final fight with Saito, seeing him bust out Jin's moveset as well as his trademark katana pop was awesome. Getting to have Jin be the final boss without him actually being the final boss, Sucker Punch let me shake your hand, grin and nod. Okay, so overall, if you've been following where the wind is blowing, Tsushima is the better game when it comes to the gameplay category. It's got a less expansive combat system, less abilities and weapons to play around with, a less convenient map and fast travel system, more tedious side content, limited variety in terms of bosses and common enemies, no puzzles, a slower horse. It absolutely destroys Yotei to the point that I couldn't even talk about the sequel once in this section because I'm just disgusted by it. Tsushima wins again. This is a complete wash. Nothing like the graphics, music, etc. category, where I infamously get completely burnt out from writing the bulk of the script and question its standalone existence. This is where the quality dips. This might as well be called the presentation category, because it's just basically the story and gameplay sections revisited, and allows me to explore one of the crucial features as to why they work so well. But story, gameplay, presentation has less of a ring to it. However, I will say that it's always nice to see games that showcase just how much it contributes to the overall experience. I could easily say that without Tsushima's flashy presentation, breathtaking visuals, great score, and sound effects, that it would fall flat on its face. It would get up due to the strong narrative and acting performances, but it would be bruised and sprained nonetheless. These games are so beautiful, man. If you were given even a penny for every time you said, "Wow, this looks gorgeous," while playing these games, you would be a millionaire. Unless, of course, you don't appreciate things like this, in which case you deserve to have a penny thrown at your head. I love how these games constantly set you up for a great view. Like when you're ascending shrines, seeing the camera pan out at the edge of a mountain, really does a great job at showing you that you're higher up than you were previously, and that the view is good. Yotei leans more on the side of large open landscapes that look a little bit more realistic, and Tsushima leans more on the fantasy side, at least that's how I take it. There's so many vibrant colors to ooh and ah at. The lighting in both games is impeccable. I will slowly walk into the sun and completely obscure my vision at a moment's notice because it's just so gorgeous. And who doesn't love doubling down on vision obstruction with foliage covering every inch of the air? Really does a great job at showing the determination and focus of Jin to be able to completely ignore every leaf smacking him in the face and not sacrifice any epicness for us. I will say that I definitely found myself stopping in my tracks to admire the beauty more times in Tsushima, but that's probably because I was frantically running around doing more side content in Yotei, and because of how convenient the fast travel system is, I'm not traveling in-game as much as I am just fast traveling to every single thing. The sound design does a great job to build upon these beautiful atmospheres when you're not striking down foes with your katana, hearing birds chirping and other wildlife or the wind blowing. It's all so relaxing. Please put me there and away from this phone screen. Both of the intros where you're running through the flowers give me goosebumps, though I think I prefer Tsushima's. Both of the soundtracks titillate the eardrums, though I think I prefer Yotei's. There were just more melodies that stuck with me this time around. The opening where Atsu is writing down the names of the Yotei 6 is made all the more powerful with the cold and epic music. Come on. I really loved the added old western feel with the soundtrack this time around. It fits with the story premises and the presentation quite nicely. Even in standoffs when you get that second kill and then like I said a second ago, presentation bleeds into how well all the other elements work. And like I said in the story portion, while Tsushima I feel performs better narratively, I think Yotei does better in moment-to-moment execution. And a big reason for that is how cool everything looks and sounds. Are you writing this down? Better music and cinematography go a long way. In Yotei, there's a lot more character close-ups, so you can fully invest yourself in their faces and feel their emotions deeply. There's just better cinematography across the board. It makes epic moments more epic. And in terms of the gameplay, more interacting with objects in real time and added mini-games help build upon the immersion and just give you more things to see. The combat speaks for itself in how flashy, brutal, and visually appealing it is. The use of nightmares and flashbacks are also great. Sometimes mid-boss fight, completely changing the setting or putting you in the shoes of younger Atsu, further establishing what the fight means to her, building upon her fear or anger. But what about peace and innocence? Having that flashback button at her home where you can seamlessly transition between past and present was sick and well done. Yotei just has a lot more tools in the toolbox to further build upon the story and vibe that they're trying to give off. In terms of Ghost, how can you talk about it without standoffs? The cutscene ones before duels. You know, I always had this complaint in Tsushima that I wish Jin would just fully take out his sword before a duel. Show us your full length. But then when Yotei granted that wish, I'm like, it's too much for me to handle. Both are great, and both make me miss the other. It's mad confusing. Is there anything else I could say to drag this out? Anything in this hollow noggin? The sound effects are great. The sound of steel against steel. The sound of triggering ghost stands. The sounds of meat being sliced. Of explosions. The sound of picking up collectibles, especially in Yotei. The sound of your horse frolicking majestically through the flowers. The sound effect of a new mission title popping up on screen, which I forgot to mention is visually fantastic. The sound of me dragging this on as long as I can while simultaneously wanting it to end. Alright, if you've made it this far, congratulations by the way, it sounds like we're at a bit of an impasse here. You got a fantastic and more satisfying narrative, in my opinion, in Tsushima. You got a more enjoyable, expanded gameplay system, not in my opinion, it's objective fact, in Yotei. You got two equally beautiful games with amazing music and sound design. What game to pick? Usually when I'm facing a dilemma like this as to which one to deem the winner, I always question myself. Which game would I rather play again if I had my hands tied, and could play video games with my hands tied? And honestly, despite everything, when I think about it, I could replay Tsushima's story 1,000 times over. It is just so good. But Yotei... Jesus! All the additions and improvement to the gameplay make it such an enjoyable experience that I could never pass up on. While some of the narrative choices could leave a distaste in my mouth as bad as after eating Atsu's cooking, I still like mushrooms. There's just no denying that it's such a fulfilling experience throughout, to the point that maybe subsequent playthroughs could ease a little bit of my bias and have me fully accept it. In terms of the gameplay, it pains me to say that Tsushima's walked so that Yotei's could run, because it's still a fantastic and engrossing game. I'm sorry to all the Tsushima stands rallying up to defend their island from the Yotei invaders, but I'm among them. Or at least I think I'm accompanied by an army of like-minded invaders, right? Maybe I'm a lone wolf. Ghost of Yotei wins. If you like this, let me know what verses I should do next and I won't listen. Also check out every verses I've ever done so we can end the "this channel deserves more views" comments once and for all. But still leave them though, they make me smile. A lot of hard work goes into these videos and every bit of support helps, so I'd appreciate it. And as always, leave a like, comment, and perhaps subscribe, and I just might make some more.